what is this opportunity mindset, right? What is this frame of mind that moves you forward? What is this frame of mind that keeps you looking for the opportunities rather than stuck with the obstacles? It's a way of thinking, it's a way of being that looks at the positive rather than the negative. So what are the obstacles that stop us most frequently? Two things. The first is a mentality of lack, a lack of time, a lack of energy, lack of resources. And I frequently see this in the workplace because there are generally, for most of us, limited resources, right? So how do we look at that? Do we look at that as a reason to stop, as a reason to say, I can't do this? Or do we look at it as a way of saying, gosh, I can really get creative with this. I can find ways to utilize the resources that I have. Let's look at the other big thing people do. They live in a lack of mindset, or they live in a fear-filled mindset, right? And you know these people, and maybe you're one of them. Like, I've been there. I know what it's like to be afraid of what? Afraid of failure is the first one, right? We're so afraid if I try something, if I step out and do something different, I might fail. What about fear of rejection? That's a big one, isn't it? And you may be thinking, gosh, Christy, I have to face every rejection every single day. I'm in sales, for heaven's sake. Do you stop and do you obsess on what could happen in the rejection that you could get? No, you don't, do you? You switch gears and you think, wow, what could happen? From the fear of rejection, right, to the focus on the possibilities. Do you see the difference? It changes everything, doesn't it? Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection, fear of, and this is a big one, what will other people think? How often have you held yourself back because you were worried that someone would think, oh, she's not really qualified? Or who does he think he is making that suggestion? For heaven's sake, he doesn't have the position that would enable him to make that kind of a suggestion. We do it. We let it hold us back. Not only are we costing ourselves opportunity, but we're costing our organization. Because every time you hold yourself back, you're withholding the good and the power and the change that you have to affect your organization. So we want to avoid that, don't we? We want to move from the lack, from the fear, and into opportunity. So how do we do that? The first thing is we have to be really clear with our goals and our vision. We have to be very clear with it. So do you know what your goal is for today? Because if you don't, then when those obstacles come up, what are you going to do? Yeah, you're going to let them stop you. Exactly. Because it's so much easier to just go get a cup of coffee. But if I'm really super clear on my vision, I'm really super clear on my goals, be it for today, for the week, for the month, for the year, if I'm crystal clear, then when that obstacle comes up and George says he's not going to work with me on this part of the project, what do? Do I let it stop me? No, because suddenly I know, oh my goodness, I need to look for someone else then to work with me on this project. If George isn't going to do it, I'm going to go around that obstacle. If this is a challenge for you, if you tend to not be in the opportunity mindset, if you tend to let obstacles stop you from moving forward, like you know that you want to, or that you should, or that you can, then you need to be really intentional with number 2, which is being very intentional with what you read and who you hang around. I know it sounds so basic, you guys, right? But what are you putting in your mind? In the morning, are you filling yourself up with the news? Heaven help us. Or are you filling yourself up with the good stuff? Are you listening to some uplifting stories or a great podcast? Or are you listening to some fabulous music on your way into the office? Or are you listening to the news and to some trashy show that gives you all sorts of horrible ideas? I mean, you know good material in your brain and not so good. I think what happens with us is we just forget. We forget the power of what we put in, right? And if you have children, you know this, right? What are they listening to? What are they watching on TV? Not even TV anymore, right? What are they watching on their phones, right? Because what goes in is what comes out. So people who choose to live in the opportunity mindset know that they are being very, very intentional with what they put in. You may be thinking, Christy, it's easy for you. I mean, for heaven's sake, you were happy that you had chickenpox, right, when you were 3. But for the rest of us, it's not as natural, right? So we have to be very, very intentional with our goals. We have to be very, very intentional with our vision. We have to be very, very intentional with what we put in, with the people that we hang around, so they're bringing us up instead of pulling us down. And we have to say, I choose to live this way, because I know life will be so much better. I want to be fully engaged in my community, at work, and I want to be fully engaged at home with my family. And that happens when I choose to live in the opportunity. I know this firsthand, because you see, in my life, I have had to choose to live in the opportunity rather than in the obstacle. All I ever wanted, from the time I can remember, is to be a mom. I wanted my life to look like this. I had the perfect image at age 17. You see, it was summer, and I was driving my Eldorado convertible. It was the 80s, people. Eldorado convertible to the country club. In the back seat were 2 perfect children, a boy and a girl. And the top was off of my convertible, my hair was flowing back, and we were going to spend the day at the club for tennis and swimming. Well, fast forward 10 years, it didn't happen. Fast forward 20 years, and it didn't happen. Fast forward a couple more years, and it still hadn't happened. I was 40 years old, and my husband said, Christy, we want to have children, right? I'm like, well, yeah, I want to have children, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I'm 40 years old. It's probably not going to happen. He said, I want you to look at adoption. I want us to look at adoption as a family. And I'm like, oh, I did not want to look at adoption. I had some negative stories in my head around adoption, and I had some friends who had some really difficult adoption stories, and so I was not open to it. But you guys, I was teaching how to live in the opportunity. So I had to say, okay, let me do some research. So I started researching, and I discovered that in China, at that time, it was 2003, they really liked older families. That was us. They really liked stable, established families, and there was a wonderful adoption program going at that time. And I found out that the babies in China tended to be very healthy, which was a good fit for us. So we filled out our paperwork. We sent the paperwork off to China in May of '03, and in December of '03, we went to China, and we met our daughter, Amelia, and we came back with her, and our lives were changed forever. And it was all because I was willing to say, instead of living in the limitation of no children or not able to get pregnant or whatever, I was willing to go out of my comfort zone, get out of the norm and into the opportunity. And I'm happy to say in 2008, we went back to China and came back with my son, Graham, and my life has changed forever. And that's why I know for you, I want you to live in the opportunity mindset. I want your lives to be better. I want them to be better at work. I want them to be better with your friends and your family, because you don't know who else's lives you'll be changing. But they're waiting for you. They are waiting for you, just like Amelia was waiting for me in China, and Graham was waiting for me in China. People are waiting for you to step out in faith, in the opportunity, and live in the opportunity mindset.